Depends on 3 agenda items. Yes, sir.
Call this meeting to order the Ascension Parish Council of August the 2nd. Ms. Fontenot, would you lead us in invocation followed by the pledge, please?
I will be glad to. Father, we do thank you tonight and give you praise. And we also come, Father, with the petition. Father, this year we have lost many young people to all sorts of accidents. We ask tonight, Father, that you protect all of our children. And we ask that you comfort all those parents and loved ones of these young people, Father. And Father, we pray tonight for the people, for the tragedy that happened on the bridge that just collapsed. And many don't even know the fate of their loved ones yet. We ask for mercy tonight on that. And Father, as always, we pray that we would have the wisdom and the courage to do what is right for Ascension Parish and for the people who live here. We pray for our soldiers that are abroad, and we ask you, Father, to keep them safe and to bring them home quickly. And we ask all these things, as always, in the mighty name of Jesus, as you, Father, protect our borders with your glory. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Ms. Patterson. Mr. Adrian Thompson is absent with excuse. He's working tonight. Everybody else is present. Move now to the chair's addition. The chair does not have any additions noted. Move now to agenda item number 4, public comment period. If you have any agenda item that you wish to speak on, please see the secretary and sign one of our public speaking cards, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak on that particular item. Agenda item number 5, presentation. Presentation of a plaque from Volunteers of Ascension. See it, Parish President, you have the plaque?
Yes, sir. I guess it was last week, Volunteer Ascension presented a plaque to the Parish Council, first Parish President Tommy Martinez, 1997, and to the present Council and Parish President for the 10 years of contributions that we have made in support of this organization. So, Mr. Chairman, if you want to take some pictures tonight, sure. Some people up there, whoever you would like, we'll hang this in the Parish office. Ms. Suzanne, would you like to take this, please, ma'am?
Do we have a camera?
Here
that may not be possible. We will have to forego the camera with the pictures, okay? Thank you, Parish President. Certainly, thank you to Volunteer Ascension. Ms. Boudreau does an excellent job with that organization, and they do a lot of worthwhile services in this parish, and we certainly appreciate that recognition. We'll move now to the Parish President's report. Parish President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members of the Council. It's good to be here with you tonight.
Parish President, hold 1 second, please. I do have a speaker on this particular agenda item, Ms. Catherine Goppel. She'd like to speak on B, Lamar Dixon. Ms. Goppel.
Thank you. I'll give you the documentation that I have for my comments after I speak. Thank you. I believe that Lamar Dixon is a wonderful facility, but it's time to apply some sound financial sense in the way we do business in this parish. The recent LSU study of the economic impact of Lamar Dixon estimates $866,000 per year of sales tax revenue for parish and local government. The facts show the parish is subsidizing a revenue stream for the city of Gonzales. Only a very small part goes to the parish. We spent $2.1 million in '06 for operating expenses at Lamar. What was our financial return? In order to see this, we have to look at the tax structure. The parish does not receive any part of taxes collected within the city limits of Gonzales. All hotels, gas stations, restaurants, and retail outlets in an approximately 4-mile radius of Lamar are in the city. Tanger Mall, Chili's, Cracker Barrel, Outback. Visitors to Lamar are going to eat, sleep, shop, and buy their gas near Lamar. With this in mind, it is a generous gesture to estimate that 80% of the taxes generated by events are collected within the city. Guess who gets the other 20%, or $173,200? 2 cents of that, or $77,000, goes to school board. East Ascension Drainage, the sheriff, District 2 rural tax each gets $19,000. So what does the parish get? Are you ready for this? Out of $866,000 of sales tax, the parish gets the grand sum of $38,488. That's it. We spent $2.1 million to operate Lamar, and all we get is $40,000. If my financial advisor told me that I could invest $2 million to get $40,000, I'd fire him, especially if he told me that my investment was actually generating $820,000 for my neighbors who weren't paying a penny. Think about it. The parish pays $2.1 million to get $40,000. Who is counting the beans around here? Our money could be used for roads, recreation, sewer, or other infrastructure needs, and we wonder why others are getting things done and we are not. Has the administration asked one other governmental agency to join us? How about a cooperative endeavor agreement with the City of Gonzales? For a start, President Hughes, you talk about running government like a business. You've made contracts like this before. Why not in Lamar's case? Should the parish continue to operate Lamar, it is now more clear than ever that all stakeholders should participate. Why should the parish, which gets so little financial return, have to shoulder the entire financial burden? If the state purchases the facility and asks the parish to operate Lamar, these financial facts and good business dictate that both the City of Gonzales and the State of Louisiana be a part of any cooperative agreement. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Godwin. Parish President.
Mr. Turner is going to give you a report on grass cutting. As you recall, we recently signed another contract to do a lot of the road miles on state roads, and so he's going to give you a report on where we are and what we're doing to try to catch up in some of those areas. Some of you have expressed some concerns, and we've received some calls. So, Bob.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chairman Valentine, members of the council, I'm Bob Turner, Director of Public Works. As you recall, we have entered into an agreement with the state for the parish to mow a number of state routes, and I wanted to come and give you an update as to where we're at and basically where we're going. We have an obligation under the contract which was approved by the parish and signed by the state approximately 4 weeks ago, early July. We're obligated to mow over 140 miles of state road in the parish. We've been doing that for the past 4 weeks, working very hard at it. It basically takes us 8 weeks to go around what we call one rotation around the state roads. And so we're approximately halfway through that. And you probably noticed that as you look at the roads on the state system, some of them have been mowed and others have not yet, and we're still working towards that. The other thing you might notice is that they look pretty ragged, and I have to tell you I'm disappointed at that. Essentially, due to the fact that it had grown up so much prior to us starting mowing, the first time that we went through with the rain and everything, we did a lot of knocking it down without cutting it. But I can assure you that it will continually improve from this point on. The parish roads were through one rotation. We're about halfway through the other. They're starting to look much, much better than they did earlier on. We still are concerned about sight distance areas where you're pulling out onto the roads and you still are dealing with high weeds, but I can assure you that we are addressing that. We're currently working overtime in order to do the mowing. We are hampered somewhat. I guess I want to make this plea to you is that it's very difficult for us to hire mower drivers. For individuals to work on a big tractor, paying attention to what they're mowing, and at the same time watching cars go by them just inches very, very fast is rather scary for a lot of people. Not a lot of people can be a mower driver in Ascension Parish. Other areas, they have decent 8 to 10 foot shoulders that you can put your mower on and feel somewhat comfortable. In our case, that's usually not the case, either on parish roads or state roads. So as a result, we have a number of vacancies. We're trying to fill those vacancies as quickly as we can. but I will commit to you that we will start looking better as we go along, and we are working hard for it. Be glad to answer any questions that you had, and I thank you for your patience, and I thank the public for their patience.
Any questions for Mr. Turner? Okay, thank you, Mr. Turner.
Thank you, Bob. And let me just echo one thing that Bob mentioned. So I could understand this issue firsthand. I've been out cutting grass with the crews, and did not really understand how dangerous it was. You got 18-wheelers, and just to, if any of you guys on the council who are qualified to operate this type of equipment, we invite you to join us tomorrow afternoon if you've got some free time to help us catch up. We do have a problem. Several of the people have been interviewed recently have not been able to pass the test for these vacant equipment, and so, but it is very dangerous. I mean, I cut on 74 and 447, and you've got, well, usually we have 4 vehicles, 4 tractors, and vehicles are just darting in between. And right in front of you, you come within a foot or so of being hit by 18-wheelers and things like that. So it is very dangerous. And so I'm not sure what we look at. We're doing some weekend work. It's less traffic, some on Saturdays, and trying to catch up. But you all need to be aware that those it's a lot easier, it's more safer most of the time for those who are working like in the drainage district on the bayous and canals, because you're not faced with this heavy traffic on these state roads. And Highway 42, 73, 431, 30, all these roads. We have no shoulders, and so we're actually cutting grass in the roadway itself, 621, 74. So unlike a lot of states where the tractors are on the shoulders and the traffic can continue to the normal travel lane, we do not have that on any of our state roads. And so and it takes longer that way, but it is something we're very concerned about. So thank you, Bob, for that report. And I appreciate Ms. Garpelt for speaking on introducing this topic tonight. It has some issues coming up at the state level. If you've read some things in the paper, some of it's been fully reported. Some of it couldn't be because the Commissioner of Agriculture, and they were working on some things with members of the legislature. Looks like that may or may not come about on some of these issues. But, you know, just like it's costing us more to cut the grass on state roads, obviously our recreational programs and other things that we do at Lamar Dixon and other places, we don't get back every penny we put into it. It's quality of life issues and so forth. And so we're continuing to work on Lamar Dixon. Secretary Oldham had been meeting with some of the family members for the last month or so, as I understand it, from some of the legislators, and they were working on some things in a meeting we had either today or yesterday, I can't remember. Some of that may not come about, so we just have to see what happens in the next few weeks. At the present time, we still have our lease purchase agreement, and the facility is certainly doing better this year than it did in the past, and there's a lot of wonderful activities taking place out there for families and so forth. So I'm excited that we have that facility, and it's part of our parish and opportunities for our families. Now, some of you have been inquiring about new hires for the this year, and so the finance department has been working with the various departments to go through and see what they were. And so you have before you a report prepared by them, and you've had it now. If you got questions, you can get with us. You'll see that most of the new hires has been by the East Ascension Consolidated Gravity Drainage District, and a few within parish government has been in the area of mosquito control, where we really significantly increased the work and the service that we're doing there. And I'm happy to report thus far I have not been informed of any West Nile cases, which is a huge change from where we were this time last year. And like we've said in the past, it's very difficult to understand it. Because we have a lot of mosquitoes, and we've had a lot of rain this year. But thus far, no cases have been reported to the administration by the State Department of Health and Hospitals. And so hopefully that's doing some good. That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman. Any questions that any of you have, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions of the parish president? I would request, if you do have a question on the new hires, that we try and discuss that maybe at the finance meeting. We'll put that on the agenda at the finance meeting, discuss that. Any questions of the parish president?
Just one comment, Mr.
Yes, sir.
And of course, new hires, grass cutting report. I'm getting calls from constituents about the minutes not being posted and the agenda not being
You
posted.
don't speak in your mic, Mr.
Oh,
Hillingsback.
did you catch that?
I'm sorry, Mr. Hillenbeck.
I said, I'm getting calls, I think we're behind on posting our minutes, and we're posting on the posting of the agendas. I don't think the agenda made tonight.
Are you familiar with that, Ms.
Just
Patton?
look into that if you would, please, Suzanne. Got a call today.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move now to the consent agenda. As you see, we have 3 regular meeting minutes that we need to adopt tonight. Moved by Todd Lambert, second by Councilman Savoy, that we accept the consent agenda. Any discussion? Any opposition? So moved. Move now to the committee reports. Personnel Committee, Chairman Savoy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Personnel Committee met, and we have several reappointments to consider tonight and one new appointment. For the Fire District Number 3, the Personnel Committee recommended reappointing Mr. Walter Leffridge.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Fontenot, second by Mr. Todd Lambert. Any discussion? Any opposition? So moved.
For the Library Board, reappoint Ms. Sandy Scallon.
Move, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Councilman McConnell, second by Councilwoman Fontenot. Any discussion? Any opposition? So moved.
There's 2 for the Industrial Development Board, one being Mr. Dan Escoville.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Councilman Hillenbeck, second by Councilman Oliver Joseph. Any discussion? Any opposition? So moved.
The second one for the Industrial Development Board is Arthur Cooper.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Sheikh Snyder, second by Councilwoman Fontenot. Any discussion? Any opposition? So moved.
For West Ascension Parish Hospital Service District Board, Mr. Glenn Shakesnyder.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Sheikh Snyder, second by Councilman Oliver Joseph. Any discussion? Any opposition? So moved.
The second one for West Ascension Parish Hospital Service District Board, Mr. A.J. Gomez.
Moved by Councilman Sheikh Snyder, second by Councilman Oliver Joseph. Any discussion? Any opposition? So moved.
For new appointments, there was 2 openings on the Industrial Development Board, Mr. Paul Wagerspack. So moved.
Moved by Councilman Barriger, second by Councilman Dempsey Lambert. Any discussion? Any opposition? So moved.
There was 2 applicants that applied for this position. Unfortunately, the second applicant is already sitting on the board, and I have a opinion from the Human Resource Department that states that you can't have a dual office holding. So we're still looking for one. So, Ms. Suzanne, please advertise for that one, please. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Savoy. Ms. Suzanne, make sure that all these people are properly notified like you usually do. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move now to agenda item number 9, Strategic Planning Committee, Chairman Kent Shakespeare. Kent?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, after much working back and forth, we have the final draft of the drainage ordinance. I want to thank a lot of people that have really spent a lot of time in this. Jeff Diaz has come on board as attorney and spent a lot of time and helped push this through for the wording. Mr. Sigler, Mr. Rube, Mr. Turner, and all the councilmen have been involved in it and in some way, shape, or form, and so we appreciate that. But it's here in front of you as a final draft, and we'd like to put that up for adoption and make that in form of a motion to get that on the agenda for
an introduction.
I make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Councilman Todd Lambert, second by Councilman Martin McConnell, that this be introduced at our next meeting as an ordinance. Any other discussion on the drainage ordinance? Any opposition? No opposition? We'll carry that out. Thank you, Councilman Shakespeare. Anything else?
No, sir.
Okay. We'll move now to the general business. Agenda item number 10, bids. Ms. Bonnie Burrell. Ms. Burrell.
Good evening. We accepted bids for pagers for the fire district. We received 1 bid from IMCO, and we recommend accepting their bid.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Councilman Savoy, second by Councilman Hillenbeck. Any discussion? Any opposition? So moved. Thank you, Ms. Bonnie. Agenda item number 11, local service agreement by and between the Parish of Ascension and law enforcement district of the Parish of Ascension. Attorney Malcolm Dugas.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Barriger, second by Councilman Todd Lambert. Any discussion? Mr. Malcolm is here if anybody wants to ask him a question. Any opposition to the motion? I'm sorry?
No, I'm going to pass.
Okay. Any opposition to the motion? No opposition, the motion passes. Thank you so much, Malcolm.
Good work.
We move now to agenda item number 12, the introduction of ordinances. Introduction of an ordinance to amend the Ascension Parish Development Code, Section 17-378, specific definitions to define single-family dwellings.
I move to introduce the ordinance.
Second.
Moved by Councilman McConnell, second by Councilman Savoy to introduce. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman.
Mr. Shake Snyder.
Again, we appreciate this coming to the council, but this is something that has not gone to committee, and I think we ought to take this. This is where we usually have our discussions and get our information and everything, and I'd like to do that before we come to council.
Is that it, Mr. Shake Snyder?
Yes.
Okay, Councilwoman Fondo.
Isn't the planning and zoning a committee of this council?
Yes, it is, but if, and just for explanation point, if Mr. Shake Snyder wants to make that substitute motion, that's perfectly in order. But yes, it
Okay, I was
is.
just
It is
wondering, I mean,
planning and zoning, that's
So it
correct.
has really been through committee?
Yes, ma'am. Any other discussion? Any opposition to the motion? Hearing no opposition, motion passes. Move now to agenda item number 13, planning and zoning recommendations. Zoning review ID 1741-07, track Z for Frankie Laporte, located on the west side of LA Highway 44, approximately 4,000 feet south of LA Highway 22, to amend the Ascension Parish zoning district map from medium intensity to residential RM to mixed use. Accept or deny on the planning and zoning recommendations.
Move to accept the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission, which was to accept the rezoning.
Moved by Mr. McConnell to accept.
Second.
Second by Councilman Dempsey Lambert. Discussion. Any opposition? So moved. We'll move now to the public hearings and ordinance section of our agenda. Agenda item number 14. Public hearing to revoke a 15-foot drainage servitude along the rear property line of Lot 12 and Lot 14, located in the Oaks on the Bluff. First filing for Pete Lee Green Construction Incorporated, legal counsel Larry Bucqua. We have in front of us Mr. Ricky Babin.
I'm not Larry Bucqua.
I understand that.
Needs no introduction. Mr. Bowden.
The chair recognize a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Hillsback, second by Councilman Savoy.
Mr.
Public
Chairman?
hearing, yes, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, do we not normally read the ordinance before
I
opening
think,
the public
well,
hearing?
we may do that.
We do.
Okay, we'll read it before we do that. I'll
I'll
stand
send- I'll
corrected.
send-
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Purpose to revoke 15-foot drainage servitude shown on the tract of land designated as Lot 12 and Lot 14, as shown on the map entitled Oaks on the Bluff, first filing, being more particularly described on the official map of said subdivision entitled Final Plat of Oaks, the Bluff, first filing, being portions of tract P1 and the parent tract, Hargrave property, Bro property, and Smith property, located in sections 10, 33, and 60, Township 9 South, Range 2 East, Southeastern Land District, east of the Mississippi River, Ascension Parish, Louisiana. Be it ordained by the Ascension Parish Council as governing authority for the Parish of Ascension in lawful session, hereby revokes that portion of the drainage servitude designated as a 15-foot drainage servitude located on Lot 12 and Lot 14, shown on the aforementioned map prepared by Ferris Engineering and Survey, LLC. Lot 12 and 14 being portions of Oaks at the Bluff, first filing, and being more particularly described on the official map of said subdivision entitled Final Plat of Oaks on the Bluff, first filing, being portions of tract P1 of the parent Power tract, Hargrave property, Bro property, and Smith property, located in sections 10, 33, and 60, Township 9 South, Range 2 East, Southeastern District of east of the Mississippi River, Ascension Parish, Louisiana. All other public servitudes that may affect the subject property are hereby reserved.
We'll entertain a motion.
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Savoy to open the public hearing, second by Councilman Todd Lambert. Any discussion? Public hearing is now open. Anyone wishing to speak on this particular agenda item, please approach the secretary, sign in, and you'll have 3 minutes. I do have a speaker, Mr. Green, that has signed up for 15. Mr. Green, is that you, Mr. Green? You may want to speak now. I do have your card already signed, so you're welcome for your 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you. I'm Peter Lee Green, Peter Lee Green Construction, here for the drainage servitudes for Vokage. We'd like to put swimming pools in. The land between the property line and the lake that the property drains to is approximately 35 to 40 feet. We'll leave approximately 7 feet of the drainage servitude intact. The reason I did not ask for any more lots than 12 and 14 because that's the only two I own. We'd just like to put swimming pools in, put a fence up, and really enhance the value of the property. Draws more taxes.
Thank you, Mr. Green.
Motion to close the public hearing, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Barriger moves to close the public hearing. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Savoy. Anyone in opposition to close the public hearing? No one in opposition. We'll move now to agenda item number 15, the ordinance.
Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Barriger moves the ordinance. Do I have a second? Not here in a second.
I'll second it.
Yeah.
Councilman McConnell seconds the ordinance. Discussion. Councilman McConnell.
And I seconded it for discussion. Thank you.
Shirley.
He answered one of my questions before I ever had a chance to ask it, is why we're revoking just the servitudes on lots 12 and 14. If they're truly not needed, and I saw notation in here from our drainage manager that they are not needed because all of that drains to the retention pond, why do we even have it there at all? Are we going to be facing this for lot 10 and 11 and 13 and 15? You know, are we going to be looking at this all together? I'm just trying to avoid repetition and duplication. If it's truly not needed, then maybe none of that servitude should be there. If drainage servitude was designated, is there really a purpose for it? I wish our drainage manager was here who could answer some of these questions, but I hate to ask our DPW director, but
Mr. Lambert may have some, you have something you can share on that?
I really don't have, I hadn't talked to Bill on this, but, you know, a lot of times we put a drainage servitude in place and we don't need it now, but at a later date, yes, it's a possibility that it would come where we need it. And being this just 12 and 14, 13's in the middle, there's going to be an issue with 13 if he has a problem down the road that we're going to be tied, you know, with two pools on each side of it. I'd like to address it with Mr. Ziegler. I've talked to him several times about it being in planning and zoning.
15 foot. The reason the 15 foot is there is our standard subdivision ordinance that's been in place, I guess, for a few years, requires a 15-foot drainage easement swale across the back of any development lot. It doesn't discriminate whether, presently the wording doesn't discriminate whether it's on a lake or adjacent to a large outfall ditch. If it's a lot in a subdivision that's subdivided, then it has to have a 15-foot drainage easement at the back of it. And that's where this comes from. Now, there was quite a bit of discussion at planning and zoning. In the end, the vote came down positive, but they had the same objections that I'm hearing here, in that we end up with a group of lots where two of them won't have the easement and the rest of them will. Will we ever need that drainage easement? Probably not. But you do end up with a situation where you've got in a couple of yards and you don't have it in the rest of them that back up to the lake.
Councilman McConnell.
And also a concern of mine, and I understand wanting to put a swimming pool and wanting to enhance the value of the lot, but I believe in many cases for insurance purposes aren't pool owners required to put fencing around the pools, or for privacy purposes. If they're backing up to a lot, that means backing up to the lake, somebody is on the other side of the lake, and are they going to want privacy? Are they going to want to put a fence behind that swimming pool, which would then block that drainage?
There are restrictions on the type of fence that we can put. There has to be.
Yes, sir. We have a lot of restrictions on fences, but we got a lot of fences.
Yeah, but I am still allowed to put a fence on my property whether there's a swimming pool or not. There's no difference. I can fence that legally whether there is a pool there or not. So that doesn't matter.
Not if it's in a drainage servitude. Not if it's in a drainage servitude.
Well, bunch of them out there.
Yes, I know. Yeah, that's what I just said. There's a lot of fences out there.
Let's stick to the issue. And Mr. McConnell raises a big point. We do have a huge problem in this parish right now with fences that are in servitudes, and we cannot get equipment down there to cut and maintain those ditches. And it is costing a lot of our citizens, because they were told one way or another about putting fences in servitude. And I'm getting calls every day, to tell you the truth, just about that situation, because obviously there's a lot in Dutchtown, and they're having to move these fences. Mr. McConnell, do you still have the floor?
No, sir, I'm finished. Thank you.
Mr. Lambert, did you finish?
I'm finished.
Okay, Mr. Barriga.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want y'all to think about it and get a mental picture. We got a retention pond here, and the backyards butt up to the retention pond. The reason it's there is to hold all the subdivision water. Therefore, all the water drains to that pond. What are we going to do, put a ditch before the pond, and at each end of the ditch drain it back to the pond? It doesn't make sense. It is not needed. All the water's gone to that pond already. Just try to get a mental picture of that. The ditch is not needed.
And please understand, there is a huge distance between the property line and the lake.
I understand. You can, unless somebody wants to ask you a question, you'll have to remain silent. Okay, just to say, you had your time. Mr. Savoy.
Question is this a pond or a lake for the development, or is this a retention pond for the drainage to collect? There's a difference. Did you build this lake because you wanted to, or did you build this lake because our regulations tell you to? Ron?
He didn't build the lake at all.
He's not the developer. He just owns the 2 lots.
He simply owns 2 lots.
Come to the mic, please. Is this a retention pond that was required by the developer, or is this a lake that the developer just wanted to provide to the developer?
This is a detention pond that's part of the drainage system.
Okay, then that's a big difference, because as far as giving up the servitude, you're right. It does not drain. I understand the layout, and it does not drain to the pond from the rear of these lots here. But let's say that at some given time in the future, we got lot number 13 that decide that they don't want to keep up the rear of their lot, and they'll allow willow trees or trees to grow at the edge of the retention pond. Now, it's not supposed to be ours, but history tells us that we get involved when it pertains to drainage.
In this particular case, because of the distance between the edge of his property and the edge of the lake, there's probably not a significant possibility of there ever being a problem to get access to do any work or to mow in any circumstance. The danger is the whole precedent of coming in and just eliminating a drainage easement in one lot and then another lot and leaving one in the middle that does have an easement, and still having the rest of the subdivision that still has the easement around it. Do they need the easement there? Probably not from a drainage standpoint on those yards. But are we going to just eliminate 2 of them and they're not side by side, or are we going to eliminate all of them at the same time? It's a patchwork deal, and that's not a good, from a planning standpoint, that is not a good thing to have. And maybe the worst thing is the precedent that's set.
Who is required to maintain the bank of the retention pond?
That's the homeowners association.
If I could.
Hang on.
What happens whenever the homeowners association and the homeowners do not take care?
We haven't had that situation that I'm aware of yet, but I will assume it will be like the sewer systems that people walk away from. I assume it would be the East Ascension Drainage District.
No, that's all, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Parish President, you want to say something?
Just make sure I understand this, Ron. And a lot of these developments, where the retention ponds really become a community amenity to the lake, the property owners bordering the lake are required in the covenants and the restrictions of the community to maintain their property all the way to the edge of the lake. Is this particular subdivision require that?
That is our standard required language. I did not inspect this particular ones, but I will assume that's the case. In no case is And the way these are set up, the detention ponds are not owned by the parish. The only responsibility that I'm aware of is that on some of the weir systems, the drainage district has the right to inspect them and to design them the way they wish.
Ms. Fonda.
Thank you.
I kind of watched this meeting the other night on TV. I have a problem with so many lots bordering this lake or retention pond, and we're going to grant two that's not even side by side. I don't know why this even came to us. I mean, to me, I think it should all go back to the drawing board, and if two can have it done, then the rest of them need to have it done also. Otherwise, 6 months from now, somebody else will be coming with the same problem. And so I can't support this.
And to be honest with you, Ms. Fonda, this is separate. I mean, these lots have been sold, or some of them are still being sold. This gentleman happens to own 12 and 14. He doesn't own 13. We can't just grant and do away with servitudes on people's homes that, you know, and that's why it went before planning and zoning, and that's why it's now here. Councilman Shakespeare.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I do share the concerns of Ms. Fontenot about it, that it could possibly be all done at one time. But as we go through, and we're talking about people cutting grass and things, this situation is no different from anybody cutting their grass in any yard. If Joe Blow decides not to cut their grass, we have certain recourses, and we have certain recourses here. And that's basically the same thing. We do not maintain any servitudes unless we put a ditch in it. And if we do put a ditch, then we would maintain that grass cutting purposes. The way this has come about is simply the procedures we use in this parish. Whether it's the best procedure or not, this is the procedure that we have at our disposal, that in general, subdivisions are required to put drainage servitudes so that we do it blanketly, so that we're fair with everyone. And it's the burden of the landowner to petition the planning and zoning and the council to release that servitude. And you look at them on an individual basis, and if they determine that they are not warranted, then they would get released from their servitude. That's the process, and that's what's happened here. And if someone does not have a reason to release their servitude, they may not do that. And so, is there a better way of doing it? There may be. We may need to look at that, and I would like to see, in this particular instance, that the Drainage Board and Planning Commission take a look at the rest of them, and maybe make a recommendations to revoke the rest of them or not. But we can look at that as a separate issue. Tonight we're dealing with these two, and this is the system that we set up, and so I see no objections with the gentleman that came here, because there is no drainage issue in this particular thing. So therefore I can support it because of that, but I do agree with Ms. Fontenot, it probably could be done across the board on this issue.
Thank you, Ms. Shakespeare. Any other discussion? Councilman Hillsback.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think what's most troublesome for me is the idea that we're setting precedent here if we allow this to happen, and we're going to see this more and more down the road. And so it just bothers me that, and I agree with Ms. Fontenot, that I think we're opening up a can of worms here.
Councilman McConnell.
No, thank you.
Okay. All right, any other discussion? We have a motion and a second on the ordinance. Do I hear any opposition to the ordinance? Ms. Fontenot objects. Ms. Hillensbeck objects. Mr. Salvo objects. Is that all? We have 3 objections. Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Ziegler. We'll move now to agenda item number 16, public hearing to revoke a 12-foot servitude extended through tracks on lots C2, C-A-1-A of the G.T. Owens property in the proposed LaSalle Point subdivision for LaSalle Point Development Corporation. Council, Mr. Babin.
Whereas the owner of Lot C2CA1A of the G.T. Owens property has requested that the dedication of the existing 12-foot utility servitude located on his property be revoked and set aside, relocated, and rededicated. as a 12-foot utility servitude. And whereas the said existing servitude is no longer required for public purpose, this council believes it would be in the public interest to grant the aforementioned request. Now therefore be it ordained by the Ascension Parish Council that Section 1, existing 12-foot servitude described as follows. A certain strip or parcel of ground, 12 feet in width and falling on the south side of the northern property line of the tract formerly designated as Lot C2CA1, all as shown on the map, showing the re-subdivision of Lot C2CA1 and Lot D1A GTO and property into Lot C2CA1A and Lot D1A1 located in sections 14 and 28, Township 8 South, Range 2 East, Southeastern Land District east of the Mississippi River, Ascension Parish, Louisiana, for LaSalle Point LLC by R. James Tatum, professional land surveyor, dated 4/18/2005 and recorded at the Clerk of Court of Ascension Parish, Louisiana on May 3rd, 2005. It is hereby revoked and set aside as no longer needed for public purpose. Section 2. Furthermore, said revocation is subject to the owner's dedication of a new 12-foot utility servitude to accommodate the necessary utility requirements with the said servitude described as follows. A certain strip or parcel of ground, 12 foot in width and falling on the north side of the proposed LaSalle Point Drive, all as shown in the attached sketch designated as Exhibit A. Also shown the preliminary plat of LaSalle Point subdivision, approved by the Ascension Parish Planning Commission on October 12, 2005. The final dedication of the newly designated 12-foot utility servitude will occur with the filing of the final plat of LaSalle Point subdivision. This council does not warrant its authority to act pursuant to the above provisions of the Louisiana Civil Code and Louisiana Revised Statute, and does not warrant the title of property rights described as the servitude area herein abandoned.
Motion open public hearing, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Councilman Barrett, second by Councilman Savoy to open the public hearing. Any opposition to open public hearing? Public hearing is now open. Anyone wishing to make a comment on this agenda item, please see our secretary sign in. You'll have 3 minutes.
Motion to close, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Barrett moves to close the public hearing, second by Councilman Dempsey Lambert. Any opposition? Public hearing is now closed. We'll move now to agenda item number 17.
Move the ordinance, Mr. Chairman.
Ordinance, Mr. Barrett moves the ordinance.
Second.
Second by Councilman Dempsey Lambert. Discussion. Any opposition? No opposition, so moved. Move now to agenda item number 18, an executive session and agreement for reinstatement of employees.
Motion to go into executive session, Mr. Chairman.
Council by Barriga moves to go into executive session. Councilman Savoy seconds. Any discussion? Any opposition to executive session? Council is now in executive session. Attorneys, Mr. Babin and Mr. Bouquois coming, or just Mr. Bouquois? Okay, all right.
We buy, this is a local company, and we, the bank, that water that we give out with our logo on it, that we buy it from them.
That didn't come out.
Mr. Chairman, motion to reconvene.
Second.
Let's wait till all the council are back, Mr. Barriga, then I'll recognize you, sir. Mr. Joseph is still absent. And Ms. Fontenot. And Mr. Savoy. All right. All right, Mr. Barriga moves that we come back into general session from executive, second by Councilman McConnell. Any discussion? Any opposition? Come back. Council is now back in regular session. We were advised on litigation dealing with a prior judgment dealing with this council, and the attorney does not need any further explanation, and neither does the council.
Motion adjourned, Mr.
Moved
Chairman.
by Councilman Barriga to adjourn, second by Councilman Lambert. Any objection? Council stands in adjournment.
The grass doesn't grow on your feet, boy. Good job.